get your local, national, and international sports. I'm here with... You're not Colette.
No, unfortunately, I'm not Colette. Sorry.
I'm here with Dan Gray. How's it going, Dan?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Pretty good. We got an action-packed sports today, and hopefully you could stay awake because you've been here since what? 4:45?
Something like that this morning. A bit of a 4:45.
So, you know, he's been here for a long day so far. We're airing this at 4 o'clock today, so let's jump right into this. Toronto Raptors. We know there's been a lot of rumors about Kyle Lowry going on. Lowry is not happy with these rumors at all.
Well, no, because he's been looking, and it doesn't matter who you listen to here on the South, they're all, is he going to be traded? Is he not going to be traded? He sold his house. Well, we talked beforehand here, he sold his house because, frankly, they're playing out of Tampa, and they're probably not playing out of Toronto this year.
No.
Let's just look at the reality of the situation. They can't get, if we go over to the hockey world, they're trying to get those 14 days dropped to 7 or less if a trade happens, but Kyle's not going anywhere.
No, he's not.
There's just what they would get back for him versus what he means to the team.
And not just the team as a sense the way he plays, but like the man's a leader. He's the heart and soul of the team. He spoke with Sportsnet yesterday saying he is retiring as a Raptor one way or another. He's not going anywhere.
So then the next question becomes, will he take a hometown discount? If it comes around to time when he's reached, I think he's got 2 years left on his contract.
Yeah.
He's probably got 5, let's be honest, 6 more years of basketball left in him if he chooses to go that route with the Raptors. And is he ready to stay with the Raptors if they happen to go into a rebuild?
I think he is. I think he wants to be a part of what this team has done, what they've been a part of. And let's be honest here, Kyle Lowry started on the Raptors with a rebuild back in the Lowry-DeRozan era. And I think he wants to continue to be a part of this team. And when you talk about a rebuild, that brings to a question. Are the Raptors buyers or sellers this trade deadline?
I gotta hope, and I think every Raptors fan, and being from the South and watching them bring out that little purple Raptor at the very beginning when they were brought in, and you, because they're just about as old as you are, you probably don't, and I hate to say that, but they're just about as old as you are. You probably don't remember the naming and everything else. I lived through that, and having this NBA team, which nobody ever thought was coming to Toronto. Let's be honest here. It is Toronto. Every other league that's come to Toronto, minus hockey, has tried to leave Toronto at some point, or leave Canada. We've already seen that with the Raptors. They had the Vancouver Grizzlies that have left Canada.
Went to Memphis.
And if you watch the way the referees do some nights, they don't want us to play in Canada either. No. But are they sellers? They could be. It depends on partly what Masai Ujiri's going to do. Like, he's got a contract coming up.
He does.
And he hasn't said he's staying here. And we were going to go after, and I'm going to screw up the name here, I know I am, but the guy out of Milwaukee.
Okay, yeah.
And then he signed a big deal with Milwaukee, so he's staying. And
Now, there's an interesting thing that I've been seeing. The Lakers are not happy with Marc Gasol. The Raptors get out-rebounded almost every game. Marc Gasol can shoot the 3. He's a good rebounder. I know we can't play the big minutes, but if you could go with Gasol and Baines as a 1-2 punch, swapping in and out at the center position, I see the Raptors winning a lot more games. They're 8th in the division. This isn't the time to blow the team up.
Okay, but if we go to Gasol, who are we sending back? Because the Lakers aren't going to take Gasol give us Gasol for just a draft pick. That's probably not where they're at right now.
No.
So, are they going to ask for Freddie? Are they going to ask for, like that's got to be an equal trade. And I can't, again, another player we can't see going anywhere. Freddie. We can't see some of the others.
Maybe Powell, as much as I love Norman Powell, and I love this guy. He is a playoff performer. But he doesn't always fit in the lineup. Because of OG Anunoby, they both play the same position, and OG Anunoby is getting better every season. You might see Powell go for a big guy up front because we get out rebounded every game.
When we talk Siakam, or when we talk Lowry, we got to talk Siakam.
We do.
He was growing. He was growing. He hasn't so much. It's almost like he's regressed. He's into his year 4 or 5 now, and the people have learned how to play against him, and he hasn't adjusted to that. Like, if there's something you can always get back when we get back to Lowry, which is where we started this conversation, one of the things we'd always say is Lowry's adjusted his game.
He has. Kyle Lowry has always been able to come in. He's figured out ways to win. He's figured out ways to play. But I think for Siakam, you notice he went down when Kawhi Leonard was gone. Now Siakam's the number one option down low, so it's not like there's that secondary and third option when we used to have such a strong power down low. Now of it just being Siakam, because Baines isn't really a scorer.
No.
I think that could be one of the reasons why Siakam's not as performing as well.
So if we get Gasol and put him down low too, does that give, even given the age of Gasol and part of the problem he's been having in Lakers is he isn't performing the way he wants to?
No.
If we bring him back and make him a second or a third option on the floor here,
I think Siakam's numbers go,
yeah,
they go up.
And I think you're probably right in that. But again, being 8th in the division, looking at another night, probably tomorrow night or Sunday, with less than stellar.
Which that's another thing too. They're missing so many players.
And this is a shot at the NBA. I'm going to take a shot at the NBA here. If this was any other team, if this was the Lakers, if this was any of those other teams, the Rockets,
they'd postpone their games.
Brooklyn, missing 5 people from their...
And 3 out of your starting lineup.
5 people out of your lineup and 3 of your main scorer starters.
With Anunoby, Van Vliet, and Siakam.
Is this a plan then for them? Let's watch the Raptors fall and maybe not make the playoffs. We stay at States. Our TV numbers go up, because TV never doesn't mean anything to any sports.
No.
What we get here in Canada for advertising on our networks is nothing compared to them, even for their small markets.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason, going back to what we were talking about before, not wanting to have professional sports teams in Canada that play in the States, because the minute they make the playoffs, like the North Division for NHL is doing amazing for advertising and viewers and everything else for TSN and Sportsnet.
But Gary Bettman has said they are not going to do that division again next season. 100% no. But I think that's going to depend on the border control and what's going on with COVID-19. But we got to move on to the CFL.
Yeah.
So the CFL and the XFL made an announcement earlier this week that they are going to explore working together and see opportunities. This has created the most buzz I have seen in the CFL in a long time. I'm a diehard CFL fan.
But it's not all positive.
No, 100%.
These players, and a lot of the CFL players, they think of a hierarchy. So NFL is where you want to be. If you're coming out of college, stateside, Canada, wherever, if you can make the NFL, and if you're in the CFL and you can make the NFL, guess what? You're gone.
Oh, 100%.
If you're in the XFL and you can make the CFL, you're gone.
Yeah.
Putting those players on the same level is going to cause some serious animosity.
Well, and it's causing some issues too. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, what style of football are they going to play? The XFL plays an NFL game. And the CFL, for anyone who doesn't watch the CFL, you got to check it out. It's a 3-down game. The field is wider. The ball is bigger.
The clock is shorter.
The clock is shorter. It's a very different game. And Zach Caleros, quarterback from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, pointed out, we're 10 weeks away from training camp, and he's not sure what's going on. The Hamilton Tiger Cats owner said no matter what happens this year, their main goal is to put on the best Grey Cup performance that they can. The Grey Cup's going back to Hamilton this year.
Which with that newish building.
It's a beautiful arena.
It's an absolutely amazing building. I've been by it. I haven't been in it.
I went to a Labor Day Classic versus the Argos a couple years ago. I'm a diehard Argos fan, being from Barrie, so my grandfather was a huge Argo fan. The whole family is.
This is where we stopped talking.
Oh, because you're from Guelph area, so you're a Tie Cats
are kind
of the thing. It's like Collette's back again.
Yeah,
but it will be interesting to see what happens there. I just really hope they stick to a true CFL format, which I'm not too worried because Dwayne Johnson did actually play in the CFL before. But quickly, to get off the CFL, let's quickly go to some Leafs talk. Campbell and Simmons are both skating, but they still haven't been drawn back in the lineup. But Joseph Woll was sent back down to the minors.
That tells you Simmons back.
That tells me that Campbell's going to be back ASAP.
Campbell or Simmons?
Campbell, because Woll is a goaltender, right? So now I also think Simmons is going to be back soon as well. And it does mark the question. The Leafs, after this weekend, have a week off.
Who goes down, though? When Simmons comes back, who goes down? Before we even get to their week off.
That's interesting. I'm going to say Enval.
I can't see why. I don't see who else it could be.
Because I feel the fourth line is really good. When Simmons is back, Kerfoot goes down to the third, and then Simmons goes up to the second. But you know what, Dan? Before we get any further into that, we got to go to a commercial break. This is a blast having Dan here today, but we will be right back to go over.
We'll talk more Leafs too.
We'll talk more Leafs. We'll talk OHL, Team Jacobs, and an NHL recap right after this commercial break.
Huntington's disease is a hereditary degenerative disease in the brain.
It affects your behaviors, your mind.
And it's a relentless disease.
If you took Alzheimer's, if you took schizophrenia, if you took Parkinson's and you mix them all together, you would have Huntington's disease.
Huntington's disease is devastating.
I just hope that I'm the last.
Welcome back to 705 Sports with myself and our guest co-host for today, Dan Gray.
Thank you very much for asking me to be here, and in this case, me filling in, I guess. Can I thank myself for filling in?
You can thank yourself.
We're going on into the Leafs, and we're getting back there. We kind of left the last segment with a little bit of a week coming up, and if they're going to trade somebody, who it might be, etc. How big do you think they got to go?
Now, you see, weirdly enough, I'm watching TSN and Sportsnet, and they're all going on, get a top six forward, get a top six forward, get a top six forward. But we're third in scoring in the NHL? Slow your roll. I don't think top scoring is what we need. I watched the game again last night. I still feel our defense needs a little bit of work, and I would also like to see sandpaper. So I would like to go for either a big defenseman or bottom six forward.
Okay, so on your market, if we're looking out there and you could have anybody in the NHL that fits that, and I tend to agree with you, we need a defenseman, we need a top four defenseman. Who is it?
I'm thinking Savard from the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay,
he's a good defenseman. He's a stay-at-home guy. He would fit really nicely on that third pairing and coming up to the second pairing when Hall's having an off game.
Okay, so how be this? You take Savard. Why don't you put him where Hall is and put Hall on the third pairing?
With Bogosian?
With Bogosian. Because then you really have your stay-at-home defense. Let's be honest here. That's your shutdown defensive pair. The other two are 1-1. You have an offensive and a defensive together. Then you got your two defensive. But Savard's going to cost you.
He is, which I'm thinking possibly a Lindgren from the Marlies, maybe a Sandin if they're looking for an NHL defenseman who's ready now. And this is no disrespect to Travis Dermott, but Travis Dermott his time might be expired as a Leaf. I think he could be on the move.
I think Dermott, you know those people that they always say a venue change will do them a world of good?
Yeah.
I think you can probably put Travis Dermott on that list.
Kind of like Jake Gardiner a couple years ago when he went to the Carolina Hurricanes, and now he's turned out to be a pretty good defenseman there.
Well, let's be honest, Jake Gardiner was run out of town.
He was.
The way he played against Boston in that game, there was no way you were bringing him back as a Leaf. So you send him off and you hope he does better, and in his case he does.
He has.
Dermott hasn't really been run out of town by me. He just hasn't really made the splash that everybody thought he was going to at this level. No, and it's probably Dermott with a pick, let's be honest.
Travis Dermott, because I'm sure you remember when he was in his rookie year, people were comparing him to Morgan Rielly, thinking he was going to be this, like, one of the better puck-moving defensemen in the NHL, which Morgan Rielly has now became that. But I don't think Travis Dermott really fits anywhere because he needs more minutes in a third pairing, but he isn't quite good enough on this team to be a second pairing.
So, and there is room for that in Carolina. There's room for him to be a second pairing defenseman in Carolina. Just right off. And we know we have this week coming up. If you're going to trade anybody, it's Sunday or Monday. So 7 of those 14 days are spent sitting on the bench. Just not affecting the team, right?
The Leafs don't play for a week. In the North Division, because we have 7 teams versus 8 in the division, every team gets like some sort of, we'll call it a bye week. So this is the Leafs week. And I think if the Leafs are going to make a move, and now I'm also not saying the Leafs have to make a move, to be honest with you. I think people hit the panic button a bit too much when they lost 3 straight, which, don't get me wrong, was the first time we had lost 3 straight this season. But I also look, both games against Winnipeg, you could argue they could have won both of those games where Hellebuyck just stood on his head.
You're going to say Hellebuyck stuck on his head for 2 games. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just the way. Last night, Nylander, he might have well walked off the ice.
I know.
He was so frustrated. It was good that he got a goal, or that would be in his head for a week.
And then, too, you also have to look at it. That was a game where Frederik Andersen says it was not a measuring stick game for him.
Okay.
I completely disagree with him. I feel this was a measuring stick game. Mind you, he played well enough last night to get the W, but I still think this is showing that Andersen might not be the franchise goal we were hoping for.
Before we go off to the OHL, just one more thing. Campbell comes back and does two or three good games. Who's your number one?
I think we could have a goaltending controversy in Toronto, especially too. Anderson's contract is ending this year. The salary cap is going flat. We heard today during the news that Jordan Binnington signed a 6-year contract extension at $6 million. So realistically, I would put Anderson and Binnington in a similar category.
5.4?
So 5.4 to 6. I don't know if the Leafs are going to have the room with Zach Hyman.
They don't. There's got to be ways to move on. We have OHL coming up here. So knowing we are the only junior league in Canada that is not playing. WHL's playing. Yep. QMHL's playing. WHL is finding ways to play the way they are. And now we're talking OHL is going to go into a bubble system, which is, you could almost see it coming. Let's be honest, there's a possibility the GFL becomes home and Sault Ste. Marie becomes home to one of these bubbles.
I think it does too. Actually, funny enough, Colette and I talked about this on our first week of the 705 Sports. And the reason why we both said, and now Dan is saying Sault Ste. Marie, you have to look at our COVID situation versus other cities in the province. Even in Northern Ontario, we have it under control, knock on wood, relatively well. So I think it would be a great place to do. And also, too, let's be honest, we could really use the revenue in Sault Ste. Marie.
And logistically speaking, look at how many hotels are within walking distance
to the GFL.
Of the GFL.
Which is going to make it a lot easier.
Because they're bringing 5 teams in. That's they've come down to this 20-team league is going to be divided up into 4 5s, and that's who's going to play against who. So you bring Sudbury, you bring North Bay, you bring Sault Ste. Marie, and pick 2 more.
Yeah.
And maybe you bring Kingston over, whoever else. That's your division.
Yeah.
And that's who plays against who for those. And exactly that. You play out of that division. The bottom one doesn't make the playoffs. The other 2 play against each other and play against. And those 4 go somewhere for an actual. And that could end up being here too. Because really, if we can get to the Memorial Cup, which is a big and a big ask,
it would be fantastic.
We're one of 2. Oshawa being the other. Let's be honest, GTA is a bit of an issue when it comes to COVID. You could walk this bubble into the OHL playoffs, into the OHL finals, into the Memorial Cup, and keep it all right here. I do not see why the OHL can't look at, or CHL for that matter, can't look at that as a bubble all the way through.
I totally agree with you, and I think it'd be good to see. The only thing I think it's going to be a hiccup for the OHL is we do have 3 teams in the States, which they're going to have to find a spot for them to play as well.
Windsor.
You know what, Windsor probably would be your best bet. But we got to move off the OHL. Yeah. Now, we're going to have tons of OHL talk, especially once they're back. But, Dan, you have an update on the BRIER for us.
Yes, we're got a couple people tied. We got Cooey and Howard are tied at 7-1. That's going into this morning. So we're into that championship pool where and it's I was saying this to Jacob. All these teams that are left are from the West. They're whether they be the wild card teams in Howard and Cooey or Team Canada in, well, I take that back, Gushu. Again, I've messed this up for the second week in a row. I messed it up on my show with you last week. Gushu is not from the West. He's from Newfoundland, and we will give him that. And again, sorry, Mr. Gushu. But we're being Team Canada, he kind of represents everybody. So, West too. And then we have Botcher and our team Jacobs. And Jacobs did not look like they were going to make this championship pool. There was a rough stretch there where they weren't getting the breaks. And they were having a hard time, in my opinion, reading the ice.
It was weird because they started off doing really well. Yeah. And then they really just started to struggle. But now, from what we were talking about off camera, they think Team Jacobs pretty much has to sweep to have a shot.
At 3 losses. Yes, at 3 losses. If they're going to curl their way into this, or they're going to find a way to get around the bend and get into the playoffs, they have to go through this without a loss. At 3 losses, you get 4, you're done. Because you got teams at 7-1, 6-2. Each one of them are gonna lose 1 more at least because they play each other.
Exactly.
So 7-2, you could have 2 7-2s in easily.
So
or 2 lost teams, and it's the top 4 that go. So at 3 losses, you just don't want to be that 4th loss team.
No.
The Scotties didn't have a 4 loss team, and I can't see the BRIER having a 4 loss team.
Neither do I. But always Sault Ste. Marie's behind Team Jacobs. go Northern Ontario. But these segments are flying by. We got to get to another commercial break where we're going to recap what's going on for your Saturday night. Stay tuned.
Drop by one of our 3 Sault Ste. Marie locations. You do life, we do taxes.
Welcome back to 705 Sports with myself and Dan Gray. We're going to quickly get into this because we have so much to talk about. This is just insane. This week in sports has been nuts.
And we can't shut up. That's the other problem.
And the weekend setup. So let's get into
I meant we can't shut up. Not even the weekend. Not even the weekend setup yet. We're getting there, but we seem to have a problem with staying within time limits, according to our buddy back in production.
I know. Mike's going to kill us at some point. Well, let's get into the new NHL draft system that's being pitched. So, Sportsnet's own Elliot Friedman talked about this, how teams would only be allowed to jump up 10 spots in the lottery, and teams would be limited to no more than 2 lottery wins. This reduction will make it that, we were talking about this off camera, the teams like the Senators, the Sabres, how Edmonton got good.
Yeah.
This will stop tanking. Because Gary Bettman also said it yesterday in a news conference. The NHL should have 0 tanking.
Well, but you have to make the punishments worth that 0 tanking. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a great thing to put on paper. And we were off camera, we were saying this could go to the NBA, this could go to Major League Baseball, this could go to all 4 major sports and say no more tanking. Mm-hmm. What's the punishment for breaking the rules?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so we're saying you can't have 2 lottery wins. You can't have these 10 spots you can jump either way. So you have a bad year and you were 25th, the highest you can get is 15th. There's going to be issues.
Well, no, I think what'll be with that is like, so the way this would work is right now, you know how Tampa won the Stanley, for example, how the Rangers got the first overall pick last year, but the Leafs almost got it.
Right.
The Leafs wouldn't have been able to jump from 16th to 1st. If they won the lottery, they could have went from 16th to 6th.
Right.
Which I think that does give an advantage to the teams that need it. But what I'm really liking about this is that teams cannot win the lottery more than 2 times in 5 years. Because look at Edmonton when they got McDavid, Draisaitl, Yakupov, Eberle, Hall,
all within like an 8-year period.
Which was just insane. And we were saying too, we think this could go for the MLB, the NBA, the NFL. This new system that the NHL is proposing could end up going across the entire sports world.
Every year everybody looks at the New York Jets in the NFL and goes, okay, so how far are they going to tank this year?
How are they going to tank this year?
And how are the Dolphins going to do it? And how are these other teams that... And again, take this, put it all 4 ways wide, and you're probably good. We have a salary cap. I know we touched a little bit on that just previous here.
This
is a problem.
I agree. The NFL did it where they dropped the salary cap by 8%, but they said this is a 1-year thing only. Gary Bettman tried to kind of hide this announcement in the ESPN announcement. 4 years flat cap. So 13 teams next year are projected to be over the salary cap, including Toronto Maple Leafs.
But, okay, in fairness, and maybe I understand revenue's down.
Oh, totally.
Revenue's up for a North division. Yet you want to kill that, which is whatever, you want to play that way because you're not getting Toronto Boston. Well, you don't like us playing in the States anyway. So
no.
and Toronto Boston's not going to be your Sunday afternoon NBC game.
No.
Boston Philadelphia is.
Oh, 100%.
But if you're going to start saying we need to cut revenues and cut costs and because of our revenues, well, now you're looking at Leafs with Tavares, Marner, Nylander, Matthews.
Hyman's going to be getting a big pay raise.
Hyman, or
Anderson,
going somewhere else.
We can't lose Hyman. 100%. The Leafs cannot lose Hyman. I would say, I hate saying it, and I love William Nylander, but he might be the guy to go. I don't see Anderson re-signing after this season. I think he'll stay here for the year if we go for a cup run, but I don't see them re-signing Anderson. And it's not just the Leafs that are going to be in this trouble. And I think it's going to make for an interesting trade deadline, just being a month away.
So here's the other side to that too, though. if we're going to mandate this flat cap, does the NHLPA ever agree to a contract-wide, like whole 5% down on their contracts? So 10 million now becomes 9.5, and so it's fair for everybody.
Would give all the teams a better shot and
every team, every player takes 5% off whatever their contract that was signed pre-COVID.
Honestly, I don't see that happening. I like the idea. I don't see the NHLPA agreeing to it.
But it's either that or maybe you lose a team or two. Like there's the other side. There are teams. Arizona. Let's look at Arizona. Arizona was struggling. There's 5 or 6 teams anyway that were struggling with revenue before this no fans, no nothing.
Well, exactly. Like I was joking with our weather expert Craig the other day. I'm like, Arizona, that's one thing about this new NHL. You can't tell the difference. There's no fans either way. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think one of the holdbacks on revenue is the Canadian division can't have any fans in the arena versus most of the American teams are having fans in the arena.
But that might change for playoffs too. They're talking that wherever they put this bubble, they may be able to get some fans in. Now it's not going to be your 20,000 energy, etc. But anyway.
But we got to move on to what's going on tomorrow night. Not tonight. Don't worry about tonight yet. Let's worry about tomorrow night. We have the Leafs versus the Jets. Again, this will be the ending of this season series. Currently, whoever wins this will win this series for this little best of 3. I'm going to make a prediction saying whoever wins this season series in total gets first in the division.
That's bold because I'm watching Vancouver and they're playing well.
They are.
I'm watching teams that are yes, they're a little further down, but if the Leafs play the way the Leafs have played against we've seen a black and white here. We've seen the way they played against Calgary, the way they played against Vancouver, and got really
struggled.
And the way they played against Edmonton, and then were really good. And then you see the way they play against Vancouver, and they struggle. You see almost Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
And we've got here face-offs. They didn't, and staying out of their own zone. They are still a defensive liability.
And you know what? They need their goaltending to match Hellebuck for the Jets to win this game, out-hit the Leafs, rattle Frederik Andersen. We also have the Habs versus the Flames, which the Habs need to not try to go hit for hit with the Flames again. That did not work last game. Have strong defense. The Flames make them play your style. Daryl Sutter, hard-hitting hockey.
Play Western Hockey League
against Eastern teams.
The West plays Western against Eastern teams. The Eastern teams struggle. Whether it be Montreal, Ottawa, or Toronto, or to an extent Winnipeg, because Winnipeg doesn't hit real well either. They're a finesse team also. And then you have Vancouver and you have the Oilers. And Vancouver's, everything in Vancouver is about the goalie.
Demko, we're back to bubble Demko again. He's been playing outstanding. So good goaltending from Demko. Edmonton needs to score as much as they can from their bottom 6. And I'm going to say Mike Smith also needs to play well. Quickly go back to Vancouver there as I skipped a point. Make sure Vancouver slows down Edmonton's top 6. As I just said, they don't have much besides the top 6.
Not even the top 6. If the Leafs proved it. You shut down the top 3.
You're set.
If you can shut down McDavid,
you're set.
You're golden.
But unfortunately, we already got to go. But that was an awesome show. Dan, thank you so much for coming in.
You sure we don't want to do an hour?
Tune in next week to 705 Sports. Thanks again, guys.